Good morning. Welcome to Legacy Club's first conversation with, and this is a real privilege for me. I've spoken to this gentleman a number of times in the past, and I'm delighted to have Levi Roots with us to join Legacy Club's inaugural coffee chat. Welcome, Levi. Thank you for coming along.
Yeah, and you, Chris. Yeah.
It's a shame. It's a shame we're doing it on Zoom and not face to face like before, but you know, needs must.
Yeah, well, I kind of see these things as a rehearsal for us for the future. So I think that's where we're going to go. A lot of this kind of stuff is going to be done like that. So we are the chosen one to start it, the guinea pigs to start this out. So, and if we make a lot of mistakes at this point.
But that's what business is about, though, isn't it? It's about making those mistakes now so that you can do better later on.
Absolutely. Well, I've always said that mistakes is feedback, and perhaps that's what's helped me to go along the way, because I've cropped up many a times. I've fallen over myself and I've made a lot of mistakes along the way over the years. But at the end of it, if you're smart, if you can remember those mistakes, because you'll always meet them again. You can be sure that whatever you face then, you keep your eyes peeled, you'll meet again in the future. But it's to remember those mistakes and to learn from them. So when you meet them again, you know how to sort of dance your way around them and that next door and on your way to success.
With a bit more finesse.
Absolutely.
Right, so I'm just going to go through some questions with you, Levi. They are quite basic and they're quite standard questions, which I'm sure you've answered before, but it's just really for our community that haven't maybe heard the story before. But I'm going to start early, but then jump to sort of way down the line a little bit, so just bear with me. So tell me if I've got this right. So we've got Mobo-nominated musician, businessman, mentor, cookbooks, founder of Reggae Reggae Sauce brand. Anything else I need to add to that?
Dragon Slayer.
Yes, definitely. So, I mean, are you sort of totting them up now? Is there more little tick boxes to go for Levi?
Well, it's life, isn't it? It's about our adventures in lives as we go along. If they've inspired us, if these moments in lives, like what you've just mentioned, and Dragon Slayer and all that kind of stuff, if you're lucky enough to come across these things, we don't all do, but if you are, there are massive moments in your life that should inspire you, that should drive you forward. But then again, it gets better, because they should become stories that you can pass on to somebody else to help them in their lives. And I'm so lucky enough to have gone through some of these, as I say, pitfalls and making a lot of mistakes, as we mentioned before, and and having fantastic adventures, like going into the Dragon's Den and defeating the dragons. When I tell my son now, his name is Christopher, actually, just saying like you, he's 7 years old, and I try to tell him of my experiences. I try to give it to him in that kind of way, so he knows how difficult it is. It's real life, and it is your dad. But that's what life is about. It is difficult, and it becomes story. If it's not stories that you can take and inspire others, then it's not going to be stuff that you mention in the way that you did. So I'm always proud when people mention these things, because they've been part of my life and they've helped me to change massively into who I am.
Absolutely, and it goes back to definitely not on the same degree, but the adversity that you overcome, like with people going through what they're going through at the moment. Out of that was born, Legacy Club was born. So for me, it's actually seizing an opportunity that comes along and making the most of it. I totally agree with you. Now, I know and I love the Levi story, and I've been fortunate enough to hear about your journey on a number of occasions, from being brought up for a number of years by your grandmother in Jamaica to arriving to a very cold, grey and wet London, aged 11 or 12. And then from that tough upbringing in London and getting into various scrapes. When you fast forward to those years of selling your sauce at the markets, festivals and trade shows, were there any points that you thought to yourself, it's not going to happen, this is just not going to take off, I need to sort of give this up?
Many times, as a matter of fact, it was constant, because I wasn't making any money when I was doing these festivals. And that's another thing I try to remind young people now when they go into business. One of the key things is that you've got to get out there and know your market. Now, this is difficult because, as I was saying before, I was out there knowing my market, but I wasn't making any money. And I was peed off every time I would have to travel, you know, few hundred miles into North Yorkshire, you know, and do some little festivals there in this quirky place where I'm the only black guy with a guitar, with a sauce called Reggae Reggae Sauce, where no one knew whatever that was about. I'm talking about jerk sauce. I'm talking about this like pre-Dragons Den, like, you know, way back, like 15 years ago. And trying to explain to that, and it was just so out. And I would come back into from these journeys, and I would come home and only sell perhaps, you know, a few bottles of sauces, not making any money, and I would be really dejected and thinking that, am I going to go on the next one? Maybe not. But then I would be inspired to go to the next one because I know I had to get that done. Because what was happening is that I was getting to know my market, and my market was getting to know me.
Yeah.
Even though many of these thousands of people that came over and were saying, you know, Levi, we love the vibes, and can I have your card? And they didn't buy or anything like that. But they surely remembered me when I was eventually in Dragons Den. When my moment had come, all these people that had seen me for a couple of years, actually, when I was out there before Dragons Den, were now wanting to buy this product, were willing to talk about it, was willing to promote it. So it wasn't going unwasted. It was me getting to know that market. And I think that was crucial in those early days. But you don't know about it. It feels like a pain because you're not making any money.
Yeah.
But the key thing is to not just be thinking about what's going in the pocket now. This is about in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not monetizing straight away. It's actually where's the longevity of this business going to come from? Now, obviously, you were holding down various jobs whilst selling the sauce at the weekend. So you was the delivery driver, warehouse manager. Were these sort of your day-to-day roles, and the sauce was something you did, you know, day and night, or at the weekends, or how were you sort of mixing the two?
Well, you mentioned my musical career when you were bigging me up in that first part there, and I suppose that's where the sauce thing started, when I slightly got this disillusion with the music after, you know, winning nominated Mobo and all that kind of stuff, and touring and performing with a lot of my heroes. Then it came to, you know, 2002, 2003. And all of a sudden I wasn't getting any gig, and I just had to get away from the music business just to put some money in the pocket. So I took those jobs that a lot of people are doing now, which is that driving job. People are doing it now for Amazon and stuff. Back then I was doing it for Parcel Force. I got a job back then for them, just so that I can keep churning money, and I didn't want to ask anybody. I'm a very proud person. So coming off the stage, and everybody knew me to see me driving around in a van and doing little menial job. But it was getting sick and tired of doing that after a while, thinking that I could get back and doing me. That inspired me that, you know, the music may not be doing it for me, but now I wanted to add my other passion, which was the sauce, and put that together with the love of the music, and sort of merge them together with my, you know, by writing songs about food and about the sauce and about my grandmother's story, and to wrap that all in together, and try and make that be the sell. And the rest is history after doing that.
Well, I've got a question about that actually towards the end, which I'll come to. Which, came to me yesterday and thought, actually, I need to ask Levi this. Hopefully he's happy to answer it, but we'll see. So then you're spotted by the team from Dragons Den. They request that you come and appear. How do you approach that opportunity to go on a show? Did you believe that this was going to be like the one chance to get Levi Roots to market, or were you just taking it in your stride? Because I know that you weren't really aware of the show as such, but how did you take the opportunity? Right, I'm going to crack this out in one hit, or actually there might be, if I don't get it this time, there might be something else.
Well, you know, your path in life is always about you. I got to say that first to everybody, because you won't do it in the way that I did it, or like how anyone did it. It's all down to you. So my path is quite unique. But I think that the only lesson that I can take up from my experiences is that I was confident in my own abilities. Because luckily enough for me, I was a bit older by the time I was spotted by that lady from Dragons Den while I was singing the song and being confident. I was kind of confident about being my own self. And I think that's how I managed to survive it. So I think the lesson is now that I can teach, and I can say to younger people who are just starting out in business, is to be confident about who you are. It doesn't matter where you're from or whatever. You can look like me. You can, look like yourself. You can do whatever, but you can be the best of you, where you are confident in your own skin about who you are. You don't have to be confident in the world to go out and make a bold speech or to stand in front of a camera doing that. If that's not your thing, learn what you are good at and be an expert at that. Because if you remember when I was in Dragons Den, I was sweating profusely like a pig, and I just thought that this is absolutely. I can imagine people that were watching the TV at the time was thinking that he's not going to get it. I mean, even when I think back, even if I was watching somebody being interrogated like that and seeing that, I wouldn't have wanted to invest. But for me, it was getting the first part, which was the me part, singing the song, being the Levi Roots that I wanted to sell, not a bit about maths and that kind of stuff. I knew I was rubbish at that. But in business, you can get somebody else in to do that, because that's precisely what I did. It doesn't mean that now I've got a multi-million-pound business that I've become all clued up in maths since Dragons Den 14 years ago. No, I'm still the same Levi that went in there, but you improve on your own self. The other bits as entrepreneur, you be smart and you get people in to be able to protect you. One
Legacy
of the key
Club.
things that I found Legacy Club, absolutely. And
Exactly
of course,
what
the
we're
Legacy
doing,
Club
right?
will tell you how it's to protect you. And I've managed to put people in place that be able to protect me in the places that I can't protect my own self, because that's being smart also as an entrepreneur as well.
Right. Okay. So you weren't doubting ever doubting your product at that point, between actually, I haven't appeared yet, I've been requested to appear, the week before, actually, is this going to be a hit the way that I think it is? Or, is there something quickly scouring the market, making sure there isn't anything else out there like that?
Well, one of the key things that made me really believe it actually is going back to those time in the shires, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Experimental time out there in the shires. It was getting to know the market, which is where we started in this conversation. I knew the market that loved the product because I was out there amongst the target audience that I wanted to sell Reggae Reggae Sauce to. If you remember in my story that I spoke to, you heard me speak before, I didn't worry to try to sell the sauce to Caribbean people in my local Brixton, because I knew that they know what Caribbean sauce is about. And they probably won't even think that, to buy Levi is just from around the corner, when they can get an authentic one from Jamaica that's imported, that's in all the shops in those local areas. So I wanted to sell my products to mainstream people that didn't know about Reggae Reggae, didn't know about Caribbean food, didn't know much about jerk back then. So in my mind, when I was on TV, I think that the fact that they had known about this product and known about me kind of helped me to believe in my own self, because I knew that I had already made them be aware of what the product was. So once it came out, they were ready to go out there and buy it in their thousands.
So when you're at home, making the sauce and bottling it at home with the Dutch part, are you thinking to yourself, I need a bit of support? Because I'm assuming there weren't any networks or societies or groups that you could actually tune into for advice and actually a bit of assistance with this. This was you making it. You're the accountant, the lawyer, the mental health expert, the product design and marketing guru for your own business. Nobody knows it like you. But there isn't anybody at that point when you're bottling at home for you to reach out to and say, can you help me with this?
Well, at this point, you really rely upon, as I says, what you've learned to put yourself in that position to get there. And that's, again, it goes back to the point about you've got to be ready before you go into business. Or you have to get to a point where you're ready enough. And if you think that you need more, get yourself a mentor, get somebody in place there to help with the other bits. My first mentor was a wonderful lady in Brixton that when I gave up the job, I was doing this sort of delivery type job, as mentioned before, gave that up, got into the sauce. Went to the unemployment first of all when I left the job, signed on, and I was given a recommendation to go and see somebody in my local Brixton. At the time, the government had set up a scheme called Greater London Enterprise. And they were like doing a scheme where they would sort of issue with a mentor and try to get you back into work or that sort of stuff. So I went along to see one of them. And this wonderful lady just looked at me when I showed her the sauce, and I brought my guitar with me, and I was trying to explain to her, this is how I wanted to, you know, to sort of merge it. And she got it straight away. She didn't even, you know, flinch like most people that I was saying that I knew at the time that I put music and food together. It just didn't work. So for me, it was just so I could concentrate and be me and who I am good at, which was making this product, which was the most important part, you know, of it at the time. It wasn't about, you know, me being fancy cooking on TV and that. It was the product of the sauce. So I never wanted to worry about the other bits and stuff, you know. So I got people in places to be able to do that. So
Yeah.
I can be able to be me, to make the product and to represent it and to write the songs and be able to sing it and be comfortable when I get out there and do the performance. Because it was a performing, selling a bottle of sauce in those days to me was just like going on stage and singing to 10,000 to sell one sauce. Because I was passionate about singing this song and performing it at every stage. And it was real, and I think people brought into that. So again, to answer your question is to get people in place. Don't fuss around trying to do things that you're not good at.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
find somebody in some ways to be able to help you to get that done. Especially when it comes to legal stuff.
Yeah,
you know, you will come across. This is not something that you can guess at. You know. Absolutely not. I wouldn't say that. It is one of the most expensive things that you will come across as the young entrepreneur in your armory. To be able to fix your business is legal because it's bloody expensive to make these actions. But I tell you what, in the long run, it will be worth it. And for a guy like me that comes from somewhere that, you know, didn't have to P in, much less to pay money for lawyers to be able to do things. It was worth it when I look back to cover myself for all that. Because if you remember, I got sued. And if it wasn't for my top class lawyer who was with me from the time when I started out, I don't think I would be here now, you know, talking about the product as I am today.
That's a good testament to actually getting your ducks in a row, isn't it? And having the right people around you. Absolutely right. So you walk away from Dragon's Den with the 50K you went in for. Was it 40% split between Peter and Richard? With Richard selling you back his shares later on. I've had the opportunity to speak to a couple of successful Dragon's Den participants in the past. And their experience of what support they got after investment is very different to yours. Even though it was designed to be an entertainment show, it's genuine money for genuine equity in your business. You know, some of our members will be going through that stage, but without the bright lights in the studio. So what advice could you give to them about picking the right investor and what else they should be looking for in an investor in addition to the cash?
It all depends on who the investor is. It depends on what your investor is invested in. You will never know until you get to know them, whether or not they were in it to make a quick buck. And if the business is doing it, then fine, they will give you support. But if not, they'll be out as soon as the cock crows. It all depends. There are two kinds. You know, for me, it was brilliant that I had these two guys, you know, two of the most fantastic businessmen, you know, Peter Jones, you know, brilliant, Richard Farley, fantastic, you know, serial investor around the world and very successful at it. But I've always said that I think they invested for two different reasons, which I can answer your question by explaining that. Because I think when Peter invested in Levi Roots. It was very clear that he invested in the future, that he thought that it wasn't going to be just about this one sauce. This was an opportunity for me to explain to him what I wanted to do. And my business plan at the time had said about TV plans and about books and about films and all these stuff, and not just about sauces and restaurants and blah, blah, blah. As a matter, I had called the whole thing the restaurant package, not the restaurant. Yeah. That was where the word originally came from, and I explained that to Peter when we first met. But on the other hand, whereas Richard came in and it was brilliant because actually Richard wanted to invest before Peter, to be fair. You know, he was the first one that spotted that. Yeah, you know, Levi, you're quite rubbish at maths, but I wouldn't quite take a punt at you, because I think he was saying that I see other qualities there. He knew he could help me with the math stuff and with that, because he's serious like that. But he can't do what I'm doing, you know, which is be me. And that together makes a great business. So Richard came in, but I don't think Richard thought about the long-term possibility as much as Peter did. They're two different animals. And whereas, you know, 18 months after, Richard offered, you know, us to buy shares back from him, which was, I was grateful for that. Perhaps that was a great bit of help from him towards me to say, oh yeah, Levi, you know, I'm okay now, because he made brilliant profit on what he invested out of it. To say, well, here's your stuff back, which I'm grateful for that. But Peter on the other end is what, 14 years now, you know, and we've gone through not only, you know, up all the way, but downs and everything, and moments of, you know, of real possibilities of things going haywire. And he's stuck there with me, and we've been, you know, through it thick and thin. So those are the two kind of different options people will face when investment come your way. If you're lucky like me to have both. Somebody who's there at the start and he says, yeah, go on, my son, I'll help you along the way, but then give you a free wheel on the bike when you start to pedal and push you like Richard did, you know. And then you have somebody else who is there with you right along the journey, even when you can pedal, because he knows that eventually you may meet up on some rocks along the way, and he'll be there to pick you up. You know, which is what Peter has been like over the years, not just an investor, but also a friend as well. So, you know, those are the two that people will look for. And but both of them, as I said, has been brilliant for me throughout my time in business.
So you then next thing you're sat in Justin King's office. You're Mr. Sainsbury's himself, expecting a medium-sized order. And quite a large order comes down the radio as to what you need to put together. What happens next?
Well, you know, it's always that stuff that you remember people or your mom or your granny always saying, be careful what you pray for. Because, you know, you're there always saying, I need, you know, Mom, I need a bike, I need a toy plane, I need extra sneakers, I need that. And you need everything as a kid at one time. And she said, what happens if you ever get everything one time? So, you know, and for me, I always prayed for success. You know, I always thought I deserved it. I wanted it. I wanted sales. I wanted Sainsbury's. I really wanted it. So that moment of when we stood, Peter and I went to see Justin. The Sauce had just now been Dragon's Den a few weeks before. And, you know, for us, we were still making it at home with the kids. And making 60-odd bottles every time we made it in our Dutch pot. And the recipe never changed, because our plan at the time before Dragon's Den was that, yeah, we're going to get investment, we're going to get a little factory, we're going to start small, and then we're going to start to build the business as it is. Great idea, no problem. Well, then we need to see Justin King of Sainsbury's, and he said he wanted 250,000 bottles from there and then. The second largest high street shop in the UK. He's telling you that he wants 250,000 of your sauce, and you're still only making 65 bottles at that point. I think you feel like you wanted to ask, where is the loo, you know?
What happened? What did you do?
Well, the first thing that, you know, Peter and I came out of that meeting and knew that we had to think fast, you know, and it wasn't now about for me to start small and maybe, you know, issue a small license here and try and, you know, do distribution ourselves. This now is about what I've always said, it's not about the sauce, it's about the Levi Roots name. And now we were open that we can pick up the phone and call anyone and say, you know, metaphorically, did you see Levi and Dragon's Den the other day? He wants to do X, he wants to do Y, which is precisely what we did. You know, we contacted AB World Foods and you know, discussed the possibility of giving them the license to do the first batch of Levi Roots sauce to around the country. And they accepted. Before we knew it, we produced it in record time, and brought it to Justin King and says, "There you are, sir. Thank you very much." And within within weeks, the news came back, that Sainsbury's were out, that Reggae Reggae Sauce was outselling Heinz Tomato Ketchup in Sainsbury's, which is a feat that I think I'm so proud of. And whenever I think about it, it just makes me smile, because I just think that little product that we made in our kitchen, in Brixton, was outselling the #1 selling sauce in the whole bloody world.
You can imagine that the board at Heinz getting this memo that says we're being outsold by Reggae Reggae Sauce, and them saying, "Who?" And they now know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Caribbean food is now, is now in everyone's mind. Now I think that little bottle of sauce and singing that song and sweating profusely and making mistakes on the show is helped to bring this fantastic cuisine, up there now, where restaurants are all over the place, and you look in these high street stores now, and Caribbean food is not just in a small corner. It has its own aisle in its entirety. So it's brilliant that that's happening.
So you're outselling Heinz Tomato Ketchup. You're a national icon at both in the UK and Jamaica. Where is your mind at that point? Are you thinking, I've made it, my family and I are set for life? Or are you hungry at that point for more success?
Well, you got to remember that I never got success until I was 47. I was 47 years old. So by that time, I had accumulated a lot of knowledge in my head. Hopefully, again, with these young people, hopefully by then, you would have learned a lot of things. So it wasn't for me to start going crazy or anything like that. That fame came my way, and I was pretty much only known to people that listen to sound systems and to real deep roots reggae music. They would have probably knowing the name Levi Roots. But to the majority of public in the UK, it was just something completely new to them. So for me, the attention coming wide could have been a little bit overwhelming. But I think it's because of my musical background within reggae, it kind of helped me to deal with that kind of situation. Because I think there was a moment there where sometimes too much can be a bit overwhelming in anything. And boy, the attention back then, maybe within that first 6 months of the sauce being in Sainsbury's, because they had it exclusively for 6 months. Right. But the whole thing and the TV shows that all of a sudden I was on TV and doing all sorts of things, it was, my memory of it is one blur, because it was a lot of things going on then. But I think friends and families kind of helped me to hold it together as well too. So my mind was intact. For me, it wasn't just me. I knew also what it was doing for Caribbean people, because this now, for me, I'd always seen, when you say black people have been famous on TV, it's either running fast or it's kicking a ball. In my kind of way that I watch TV. But for the first time, I think this was a bit different. This was somebody making a fool of himself at first, but it was about business and enterprise. It was about making money. It wasn't being sports or anything. We have lots of that. We have lots of people doing other things. But here was somebody representing it that they probably were inspired by it. And I felt the pressure of my community, because they were showing the love towards me. And there was absolutely no doubt that they were now saying that, yeah, Levi, go on, Levi. And I felt the love. And with the love of the immense pressure of having your whole community, the whole Caribbean race around the country is spurring you on. Boy, that is a heavy kind of load at times. But again, because the Caribbean is so diverse with the islands and everything like that, you have to be very careful or you chart, especially when you're dealing with their food.
Right. Okay.
What people eat in Jamaica here, which I'm from, perhaps people want to eat around the corner in Barbados, which is not even too far, or in Antigua, or in whatever, Guadeloupe, or it's also different. So the pressure, in some sense, the love is good, I'm feeling it, and it's great. But the pressure of being in that situation, I tell you, sometimes I wouldn't have wished it on the world. But
you also would have changed it, I'm sure.
Sorry?
You also wouldn't have changed it for the world, I'm sure.
Oh no, as I said, the love is immense, man, and that's the power. You don't get that for free. You don't
Yeah.
get that for doing just any old thing.
So if we come back to the present day, and we see, Levi the mentor, the philanthropist, and the Levi that gives back via various charitable causes, like we was just talking about, the young entrepreneurs, and still very close with Peter Jones. I've seen you and I've met you a couple of times at his golf days and stuff, which is fantastic to see. You still have that relationship with him. You don't have to answer this. You can say no comment if you like, but I think that will just give away your answer anyway, Levi. What is the plan for the Levi Roots brand? I mean, is an exit ever on the horizon for you from the business? Was it ever in the plans for Levi Roots, the brand, or are you just want to see this out the whole journey?
That's a really good question, and it's that question that goes right at the heart of who I am, really.
Yeah.
Because when you are the brand, it's a bit different than if the brand was called Reggae Reggae Sauce, for instance, and it wasn't me. Then the future wouldn't be that important or that wholesome as it is where I'm concerned. It's difficult to get away from it. The key thing, I think, what makes the brand strong is that I'm still fit and well and being out there to be able to promote the brand. And the licensees that we have, I think they're aware of that, because that's part of the reasons why it's still very strong for me to do licensing. Because some of these companies will know that, he's there and he's always on social media. We can always be able to that. He's on TV, a lot of that sort of stuff. So as a brand, as a company, we are aware of that I have to keep fit and strong. And without that, then the power is not that strong within the brand. So for me, the long-term future is about that. It's about for me to keep him fit and keep him well, to be able to represent the brand. There must be in the back of your in one's head somewhere a time when you're thinking that, do you want out? But when it's you, how do you want out of you?
Exactly.
I'm
glad you said that. Because it is the
the
authenticity of what the brand is about is maintained because you're in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's why one will always have to be aware of that when you're setting your business up. Is what is the essence of it? Because there's a lot of things involved in there. There's integrity involved in there as well too. Because again, as a Rasta man and everything, I have to preach. It's the essence of what you are. It's not about just saying, you're Levi Roots and you sing reggae, that's the brand. It's also about being true to who you are. So when people look beyond the image of the flying locks and the blah, 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 who is the person beyond that? That also has to be wholesome and pure and true as well. So there's a lot of that goes into that. And in some ways that makes the brand even more valuable, because, there's a real person there to represent what the culture of that brand is. And I think that's what a lot of licensees buys into. For instance, we just did a whole range of a brilliant set of healthy food with a company called Muscle Food.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do healthy stuff, especially, recently when we found that, so many people have got so much high blood pressure, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, type 1, all this type of thing. I wanted to get fit. I felt a little bit overweight, and so I wanted to do something. And I met these great guys, brilliant company, and I just thought they can help me to get my point across about healthy eating. Again, like how we started, if you can't do it, get someone else to do it. And the brand is still appealable to them because they see me looking well and they're not seeing me trying to sell something and I'm overweight and doesn't look well and that sort of stuff. They know I can represent the brand. So that also, helps us to sell the Levi Roots brand going forward as long as I'm fit and well. So yeah, for me, the future is not about selling out or doing anything because I am me and I think I'll always be me. And even if I did, I'll still always have to have some sort of association with the brand, anyhow.
Well, thank you for the very honest answer. I appreciate that, Levi. Yeah, there would be some people that probably dodge that because it might be potentially inflammatory to their future
I was
plans.
trying to dodge it. I was trying to
So if we go back to those tick boxes at the beginning where we said businessman, chef, reggae, reggae sauce brand, what if you added dragon to that? You know, what if the BBC and the Dragon's Den came to you and said, Levi, you know, this is the student becomes teacher moment for you. Would you be happy to sit in one of those chairs and become a dragon, a mentor?
Well, I'm going to say that because I remember the moment I've actually sat in the chairs before. You know, they have invited me in. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I got a chance to have some photographs to sit in the actual chair. I didn't sit in Peter's chair. I think I sat in Deborah's chair, I think, just to get a feel.
Don't tell Deborah.
I wouldn't dare sit in my mentor's chair. Nah, man, that's untouchable. So yes, I've been there, and you know, man's lucky enough to experience what it is. But in true form, you know, Chris, I've always, like I said, I love the term Dragon Slayer because it says something not just about me, but what I want to say to young people and about people starting out in business, that you can be the underdog as well. You know, you can come from wherever you are, and you can have your own dragons. Dragons they're not just going to just come in the guise of what my dragons, in the disguise of them, of 5 white multimillionaires sitting in front of me with all that money, breathing fire, waiting to devour me. Other people's dragons will be the bank manager, just a normal bank manager that you go to, you know, with your business plan, and you're all puffed up and thinking that you've done everything right and you've crossed every T's and done everything, but will he give you the money? You know, so you know, they will come in your different ways, and you just have to be prepared for it. And for me, I will never class myself as a dragon. You know, I'm the one that goes out there and slay those dragons, and I think that's why I love it when people say dragon slayer, because I like that, because I was completely the other way around. You know, I didn't go in with my sharpness of tongue or looking like the archetypal businessman, you know, just like many people out there now, and you know, that's got their plans inside of their front room watching this podcast at this moment. Not everybody is on the scale of being able to stand in front of you know, cameras and everything and be able to win yourself in investment. Yep. But you know, I think when I'm hoping that when they think about my story, they will see that, but you don't need to be everything. All you need to be is you. You know, but if you're true to yourself and the dragon, because you see many a times, you know, these dragons will, especially Peter, he does invest in the person rather than in the product. Right. You know, if you can give the true you, and I think it's just a human thing. You know, if they see you being really true about what you want to do, you know, and you're willing to put in the work, most of the time it will tug people's heartstrings, and they'll be willing to hear more of what you say. So for me, it is about that. You know, it's not about sitting in those chairs. And I don't think I would ever be that person that would be able to have to say no to somebody based upon the fact that you've only presented in 7-8 minutes in front of me. Yeah, I'd much rather be the person that is around the corner that tries to fix those after they've got devoured by the dragons. You know, I do them nice that patches them up and says, yeah, that's go lovely. Again and see how it works.
Love that. So I have to ask this question in terms of how a lot of our members will be feeling and what they'll be going through at the moment, given the current climate. But with your brand being so big and everything that it's done, has there been any issues for the business? Has it had an impact with COVID? You know, have you had to sit down and have these Cobra meetings where you actually, what are we going to do? It's having an impact on our sales, or is there anything you've had to pivot or change because of the pandemic?
You know, I sit back and I absolutely feel it for a lot of businesses out there, especially those, you know, in the food business, in restaurants and that sort of stuff. Because I know this is something that just came and just hit everybody just like that. There wasn't any preparation for it. Nobody thought about being able to, so you could put things in place. It hit everyone pretty much, you know, pretty much difficult. difficultly. For us, we were lucky that we are in food and drink in that sort of way. And to be fair, again, I just thank God that we were there, that we haven't suffered that much within that. The business in that sense, I think has gone pretty well for most of us who are in that sector. But again, weep for those who are not. But yeah, for us, again, it's just to try to keep on top of things and having to reinvent it ourselves as well, because the customer is different. So the work continues as well. The customer doesn't think the same, and the reaching to the customer is different as well for us. So we've got work to do as well, even though, we haven't suffered that much where business is concerned. But yeah, for others, I know it's been terrible. And we actually closed our restaurants just before lockdown.
Right.
Because we were feeling the pinch. We had opened a restaurant in Westfield, and we had it running for a few years, doing quite well, and then all of a sudden things got bad. And in some ways, in hindsight, it kind of saved us because we were ahead of it. Because I think we would have been in much worse of problems if we were still running an high-class restaurant in a shopping center like Westfield, where it's not cheap to run a restaurant there. But yeah, we got out of it just in time as well too. So again, I've been lucky in that respect.
Good. I mean, it's reassuring to know that, the companies as big as yours will still, be impacted by this. And it's not just the little guys that really are going to have to tread water in this. Everybody's impacted, and everybody has to make changes to make their businesses withstand what's going on at the moment. And it's a tough time for everyone. And I wish everyone well in that regard. And hopefully we'll see this out over the next sort of 6 months or so, and see everyone prospering again, which would be brilliant for all concerned. That's kind of the end of our conversation, but I just wanted to really say I'm so grateful to you for coming along. I know this is an extremely busy time of year for you anyway, and I'm really grateful to you for your time. And obviously once Legacy Club has launched officially in a new year and we can all get back together and actually shake hands with people, it'd be great to have you along at maybe an event or two, and maybe get a song or two out of you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see, music is never too far from behind. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you very, very much, Levi. I really, really appreciate it, and I wish you all the best.
Cheers, Chris.
Thank you.
Nice one.